chess was a male-dominated sport.
Women were not allowed to play in male tournaments.
There is the pure mental ability needed to understand chess, and there is the personality required to become good at the game. Women don't have either of these sides.
12-year-old Hungarian schoolgirl Judit Polgar has won a major international chess tournament and made history.
In the beginning, everybody underestimated me.
Oh, they're terrible chess players.
Laszlo Polgar, together with his wife Clara, decided that they were going to be raising geniuses with this experiment.
When I was 5 years old, I started my chess training.
This 12-year-old girl with the open ponytail, and she is just dominating.
I was a killer, attacker.
She was a top player, but still a female player.
In 1994, Judit Polgar was going to play Garry Kasparov.
You have the feeling that he wants to eat you up alive.
Chess was psychological warfare, the toughest kind of competition in its purest form.
For the first time, we had a world champion facing against the world's best female player.
Is she going to be killed?
Let's go!
Playing Kasparov like playing Larry Bird or Michael Jordan.
I was dreaming to win against Garry Kasparov. We played several games against each other.
She was going blow for blow with the greatest chess player of all time.
This is a dogfight.
The game is never finished until it really finished.
Rory, watching the trailer gets me all hyped again. I've seen the film 3 times. I was lucky to be with you in Sundance when it premiered. But Rory, first of all, congratulations on this film. It has just done so much already. It reached the top 10 on Netflix in 14 countries. Did you anticipate that this film would be this successful? And how are you feeling at this point, given that it's been such an amazing couple months with it being everywhere all over the place? Your thoughts on the success of Queen of Chess?
Well, it's great to be here with you, Danny, and we've been on this journey together now for a good long time. So I'm really happy to be having this conversation with you, and it was really such a thrill to have the film premiere at the Sundance Film Festival, one of the premier festivals in the world, really, for documentaries, and it was fantastic that you were there, and Chess.com were such a part of that experience. And then, pretty immediately after that, in early February, the film came out on Netflix and has been gangbusters. I mean, it's gone all over the world to 190 countries, and people are really engaged with it. And of course, I'm thrilled because we made this film and became very invested in this story of Judit Polgar, and hope that it would reach not only chess fanatics, but also kind of the wider community. And I've gotten so many emails and feedback about people who are now starting to play chess and getting their kids to play chess. And it's really a thrill for me.
It's amazing. Well, speaking of chess fanatics, those in the community know Judith's story well, right? She's worshipped. She's a hero for all the right reasons. But for you, you didn't come to this as a chess fanatic. At least I don't think so, right? What drew you to Judith's story? Like, why did you choose this as your next biggest project when you did?
Well, I was actually approached by a fellow filmmaker, producer, who asked me if I might be interested in doing a documentary about Judit Polgar. And my first question was, who is Judit Polgar? So I am not a chess player, and I was unfamiliar with her story. But then, I started reading the background materials about her and learning that she was the #1 female chess player in the world for 26 years. And she was the only woman to have broken through the top 10 of all chess players. And she was at the time the youngest person to become a grandmaster, beating Bobby Fischer's record, Kasparov's record. And, you know, as I was learning about her, my feeling was, why don't I know Judith Polgar's name?
Mm-hmm.
And then as I kind of dove deeper into her story and learned about her growing up in communist Hungary and having this, you know, domineering father with a real plan in mind about what these kids should do every day, and had a vision that geniuses were made, they weren't born. So if you put them under certain circumstances, that pretty much anybody healthy enough could become a genius. And the children decided, Judith and her sisters decided, that they wanted to focus on chess. And he was game, and they focused on chess, and they did it every day, 7 days a week, you know, no vacations. And when you talk to them, they really loved it. And so, you know, coming out of that environment, Judith just, I think, kind of blew everybody's minds in terms of her capacity and her prowess. And it's a really fun story to get out in the world, and all the things that excited me about it as I was learning about her story. You know, there was this feeling of like, how is she going to win this game? Like, if she wins this one, everything can turn for her. She can become the youngest grandmaster. Is she going to beat Bobby? Is she going to beat Kasparov? You know, so on and so forth. And it became very exciting to me. And I wanted to reflect that in the film. So, and I'm so happy that so many people have come up to me and said, you know, I was at the edge of my seat watching this film.
Well, even as someone who knows her story, I was on the edge of my seat, and I'll say that I don't think you reached the top 10 on Netflix in as many countries as you did, unless you bring it together in a way that it's cinematic, right? You're telling a story, and I'm curious, what were the pivotal points you anchored around? Obviously, okay, I'm gonna, a little bit of spoiler alerts ahead for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. I'm now officially gonna operate as if you've seen the film, but you anchored around several huge moments. You mentioned breaking the record, Bobby Fischer's record held previously, becoming the youngest grandmaster in history, of course, breaking the top 10 and all the other accolades she had in her rankings. You also anchored heavily around the rivalry and then the kind of evolution of the relationship with Gary, right? Gary Kasparov. And so if you can take us into how a producer and directors and writers, how you think about bringing to life someone's life in that way, right? It's a true story, and you're trying to leave people on the edge of their seat as if they don't know what's going to happen. And again, even for people who kind of knew what was going to happen, I felt I was on the emotional hook that maybe you wanted me to be on as far as how this was going to break down. So if you can, just share a little bit about how it came together in that way.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Well, in part, it was driven by Judith. You know, she did have, as you pointed out, all these accolades, but when you talk with her, you know, she is a athlete. She's a chess player. She wants to be in the ring with the greatest of the greatest. And so, you know, even though I think she was very proud of all of her accomplishments, that ultimately she wanted to take on Gary Kasparov. You know, he was the best of the best, and many people feel like he was the greatest chess player of all time. And so she really, really was kind of focused on him and trying to beat him. And so we ultimately kind of narratively focus the film primarily on that story. And, you know, that also helps kind of create these different characters. They're up against each other. You get invested on who's going to win this tournament, who's going to win this one. Is she ever going to beat him? And it kind of helps drive the narrative. So that was kind of a structural orientation of the film that I think helps push it and kind of keeps the audience gripped, I hope. And then on top of that, we had kind of layers of music. We had some really wonderful composers who I think did a kind of more kind of classical music, and then we combined that with licensed music that was actually like female punk bands from like the
I love the
1980s.
music,
And
by the way. Yeah, that
thank
was such a
you.
great choice.
Yeah, and it somehow works. I mean, it feels unnatural, but it somehow, I think, works beautifully, and that helps also create, these female punk bands, I think, had kind of a similar trajectory of Judith, in that they were kind of entering what had been a classic male world and sort of blowing it up, and having such confidence and moxie, and just going in, and like Blondie and bands along those lines. And so I think that kind of helps create energy. And then we also had a style for the film, kind of graphically, that also, I think, helps explain what the stakes are for folks who don't know chess, but also help bring some energy to it. And then, of course, we did some recreations of some of the older chess games that we focused on the film, so that you could really understand, and what I came to appreciate so much about chess is that, a game can be going in one direction, and then one move can change everything. And then the whole thing, switches over to the other person's side. And so kind of really emphasizing those moments narratively and visually in a way that I think the audience can really appreciate and come to understand, even if you've never played chess before, was an important part of our approach in making this film.
Honestly, it's fascinating to hear you talk about it. Entering in a world where we're thinking about how to tell better stories in chess, we think our world is fascinating and there's all kinds of interesting characters, and that at times their stories haven't been given justice, right, or told in the right way. And so, just hearing you kind of break down the thoughts that went into bringing Judith's journey to life, I think it's a good segue to talk about the fact that you chose the music deliberately in regards to the female punk bands, talking about the journey, or at least some shared experience of breaking into kind of a traditionally male-dominated space. I think that's a good segue to get into one of the other. Well, I want to ask you whether it was one of the goals of the film coming in. Certainly for Judith, she's not just one of the greatest chess players, man or woman, of all time, because she is the greatest woman, and what her presence and accolades and achievements did to inspire other women in chess. You ended up getting into the narrative, of course, of just how much of a trailblazer she was. And I want to play the clip that a lot of people have talked about since the film, the quote from William Hartston. And so let's play that clip and bring up the quote. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what some of your goals were with helping to shine a light on the better representation that women deserve in chess, and kind of how that went into the film. But all right, let's play the clip and we'll get to the quote.
There is the pure mental ability needed to understand chess, and there is the personality required to become good at the game. Women don't have either of these sides.
So, unfortunately, this, obviously, as he said publicly, this was a thing that I think this was an opinion that was shared by more people than would probably be proud to admit it today, right? As far as where the game has come, and for obvious reasons, and not only because it's not true, but I think it represents bias and kind of, unfortunately, some inherent misogyny that has existed in chess for a long time. But what was your goal with bringing this part of Judith's story to life, and how were you thinking about that as far as what you wanted to leave as a legacy? Not just there's Judith's legacy, but your film leaving a legacy to inspire future women to play. And just talk a little bit about how you were thinking about this angle.
Yeah. Well, I would say I love sports, and I love sports films, but I think the thing that attracts me to particular stories that are connected to athletes, and I do consider Judith to be an athlete, and I do think of this as a sports film, that kind of the narrative around their story, like what motivated them, how they became the person they became, is almost more important to me than their pure success, right? And so
Yeah.
a huge part of what attracted me to this story, and what made me feel that it was so unique, is not just that she was the best female player for 26 years and reached all these accolades, which I won't repeat, that the way she did it and the circumstances under which she had to do it. So one of those, and one of kind of the primary challenges that she had to overcome, was the enormity of kind of the sexism that pervaded the chess world when she was breaking through. And you see that throughout the film. And of course, the quote there is one example. Bobby Fischer adds to that, talking about women just clearly aren't intelligent enough to play chess. And Kasparov has his own, very early feelings about women's capacities. One of the things I do very much appreciate about Kasparov and his role and kind of the story he plays in the film is that he evolves. Where he is in the beginning of the film and where he lands at the end of the film are very different places. So he has his own kind of trajectory and, act 1, act 2, act 3 evolution. So, I really appreciate his ability to change and adapt, and probably contributed to making him such a fierce chess player. So, looking at those realities in the chess world were definitely a big part of the storytelling and kind of what motivated me to tell this story. Judith, when she's asked the question, I always appreciate her response, because she does recognize that, so many of the men, especially in the 80s and 70s, 80s, and early 90s, when she was beginning to break through, had never seen a woman do it. Like, no woman had actually done it. And so I think until you start seeing people do it, then people make certain assumptions, and they don't necessarily understand, well, they weren't given the conditions, the circumstances weren't there, they weren't given the support that they needed, so on and so forth. Nobody believed in them in the way that they did with men. But those realities kind of go by the wayside, and at the end of the day, you can say, well, they're here or they're not here, so they probably aren't capable.
Yeah. I really appreciate the way you described, again, Gary's arc, because I also think, similar to putting people in a chair to be invested emotionally about where the story's going, even though anyone in the chess world also was already kind of aware of Gary's sort of evolution in terms of what he initially thought versus where he landed, but seeing that come to life kind of directly through the relationship he had with Judith, eventually they're training together. And just, again, I just want to say that I appreciated every aspect of that. We have one question from chat, and I know we're right up against time. You're very busy because you've got a lot of media and press happening around Queen of Chess. So I want to get to this question from our community. This show we do, the state of chess.com, is all about engaging with the community. So this is a good one that we pulled, because for me, I really want to hear your answer to this as someone who works hard within the chess community to improve representation for women, and where I can partner with and tackle some of these long-standing, I would say, unfortunately, at times still very present issues of the bias that women can feel in chess. I want to know how someone outside of our world, having been in our community now for the last couple of years, would answer, what should chess and chess.com do to continue to make women feel welcome, to make women feel, that they're getting better representation in chess? And I would just love to hear your quick thoughts on this, if you don't mind.
Thank you. I think showcasing women and making sure that they have a platform that they are focused on, that there's a spotlight on them, that young girls can see older women as role models that they can aspire to. I think, getting Judit Polgar's story and she herself out in front, and there's so many other wonderful women chess players now who I think are also are deserving of the spotlight. I think that just recognizing and showcasing them and making sure that, particularly young women, but also young boys, are seeing them on equal footing and equal ground makes all the difference.
I love that. I'm going to steal one question before we go to a break. Rory Kennedy, director. What is next for Rory Kennedy? In the chess world, you've been very busy. Can you preview any other projects you're working on?
I'm actually finishing up another project for Netflix right now. It's not a sports film, but and I can't talk too much about it, but I'm very excited for it to come out and hope that the chess audience enjoys that one as well.
Okay. Well, the chess audience really appreciated your work here. We will continue to appreciate it for years to come. The film continues to do well and make waves in all the right ways. So, Rory, thank you for your work here. I know you and I will continue to stay in touch. This won't be the last time we talk, but thank you for also taking
Definitely.
the time to connect with the chess community here.
And I just want to do a shout out to Chess.com because you guys have been such an advocate for the film and really cheerleading the film and supporting it and supporting Judith and her story, so many other women and me. So I appreciate you guys so much. You've been amazing.
Thank you, Rory. Thank you for being with us, and thank you everyone for